Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are bridging two totally different worlds that you would probably never expect to see in the same room together. Ancient Eastern mysticism and modern Western complexity science. We're diving into cyclic economics in Dasun thought. And let me tell you, this is going to challenge how we view pretty much everything, from the grand sweep of human history down to the everyday economic systems we're all living in right now. It basically proposes that the universe doesn't just move forward in a straight line, but rather it moves in this continuous, beautifully complex spiral.
Here's a quick look at our agenda for today. 1. Two views of the world. 2. When linear logic breaks. 3. The 5 cyclic principles. 4. Redefining economic systems. And finally, number 5. The ultimate spiral.
All right, let's jump right into part 1, two views of the world.
So, traditionally, Western science loves to figure things out through reductionism. This essentially means dissecting reality into smaller and smaller pieces. It's almost like taking apart a car engine just to look at the individual gears and bolts, right? It's highly analytical, it's very linear, and it subtracts layers to find the absolute smallest particle. Now, Eastern thought? Totally different vibe. It embraces holism. It looks at the correlations and the circularity of the entire system. Instead of isolating the tiny parts, it uses an additive method. It discovers how the whole thing circulates and then, and only then, defines the individual parts based on the specific roles they play within that massive, interconnected web.
Moving right along to section 2, when linear logic breaks. For the longest time, that linear Western approach completely dominated global science. I mean, it gave us incredible technological advancements, for sure, but eventually, this purely linear logic hit a massive mathematical brick wall. Brilliant mathematicians, people like Bertrand Russell and Kurt Gödel, actually proved that a strictly linear philosophy could never explain absolutely everything. They showed that any universe engaging in self-reference can never possess a completely 100% watertight system of mathematical proof. There are always going to be exceptions. Basically, the attempt to construct perfectly linear, exception-free laws just had a fundamental flaw built right into it.
And that brings us to an absolutely fascinating bridge: complexity science. Instead of sticking to a rigid, mechanistic worldview, think of reality as a living, breathing organism that spontaneously creates brand new order right out of chaos. Take the Red Devils soccer fans at the 2002 World Cup as a real-world example. If you looked at those massive crowds, they seemed entirely chaotic, right? But somehow they self-organize beautifully into this unified force. It's a perfect proof that circular, holistic systems aren't just mystical, they are highly scientific and deeply embedded in the reality of our world.
Which leads us perfectly into section 3, the 5 cyclic principles.
So here are the core mechanics driving everything we're talking about. 1. Polarity. 2. Flowing circulation. 3. Neutralization. 4. Return. And 5. The spiral. We're going to unpack these step by step so you can see exactly how energy, nature, and even our global economies actually flow.
Let's start with number 1, polarity. Now, in the West, we have this habit of viewing opposites as being locked in a war, good versus evil, light versus dark. But in this thought system, yin and yang are definitely not enemies. They represent a mandatory harmony of difference. Think about water and fire in nature. Sure, they seem like ultimate opposites, right? Yet the electricity in seawater becomes clouds, which nourish the earth, which then sustains all life. Instead of destroying each other, their difference is literally required to keep a complete functioning ecosystem alive.
And this beautifully illustrates our second principle, flowing circulation. Imagine a giant fountain. Water gathers quietly down at the base, which we can think of as winter. Then it shoots up linearly and vigorously, just like a young sprout in the spring. Once it hits the top, it spreads horizontally in all directions, representing the massive, expansive energy of summer. Finally, it falls vertically back down, like autumn, only to gather at the base and start all over again. It is a dynamic, eternal loop of energy.
For the third principle, neutralization, we're looking at what's called the triple Taiji. In this model, humanity doesn't just sit around passively. We actually sit exactly in the center to mediate and harmonize the actions of heaven and earth. We are the active balancing factor that neutralizes the extremes, allowing the cycle of the seasons and life itself to continue smoothly.
The fourth principle is return. In modern complexity science, we call these feedback loops. When you're on a circular path, actions don't just magically disappear into a void. They inherently return to their source to maintain the cycle. And this applies to everything from cosmic energy to human ethics. If you put grace out into the world, it returns to you as virtue. But if you create enmity, it blocks the circulation and, well, that returns right back to you as well. It's basically reality's built-in self-correcting mechanism.
Finally, we reach the fifth principle, the spiral. See, we aren't just spinning endlessly in place like a hamster on a wheel. Natural cycles actually grow upward in 3 dimensions. Think of the sweeping shape of a galaxy, or a twisting strand of human DNA. With every single rotation, the system increases its production, it evolves, and it moves forward. It's this incredible combination of circular repetition and upward, linear growth.
All right, moving into section 4, redefining economic systems.
This framework neatly takes some incredibly dense historical traditions and aligns them perfectly with the seasons and the 5 phases of a living complex system. It's like a giant puzzle. For instance, spring and wood map to the human-focused ethics of Confucianism. Autumn and metal align with the very inward, spirit-focused nature of Buddhism, and winter and water tie directly to the gestational, formless nature of Taoism. Together, they represent the necessary cycling phases of our own societal development.
Now, looking at this impartially, it's genuinely fascinating how these ancient concepts map straight onto modern political and economic theories. Polarity aligns with libertarianism, individuals seeking equilibrium. Flowing circulation mirrors communitarianism, distributing resources across the whole group. Neutralization connects to utilitarianism, balancing extremes for the common good. And return is linked to social contrarianism, maintaining the rules for the whole cycle can keep going. It's also worth noting that traditional communism ultimately failed precisely because it completely ignored these very natural principles of circularity and feedback.
Want to have your mind blown for a second? The binary zeros and ones powering the very device you're watching this explainer on right now, those are literally digital manifestations of yin and yang. They are a cycle of on and off, of polarity and difference, creating infinite, incredible complexity out of a simple alternating loop.
Which brings us to our final part, section 5, the ultimate spiral.
So what is Daesun thought ultimately trying to achieve? It aims to take broken, stagnant systems, places where the natural flow of energy and economics has just been blocked up, and restore their flowing circulation. It does this through a concept called Heiwansangsang, which is the neutralizing of past grievances and resentments. By clearing out those blockages, the ultimate goal is to create an economy and a society of mutual continuous benefit. It's about shifting away from a system of constant friction and extraction into a perpetual engine of shared growth. And that brings us to a really powerful realization about our own place in the universe. Remember, we are the mediators sitting right in the center. So, I'm going to leave you with this question to chew on. If history isn't just a straight line marching toward an end, and it isn't just a closed loop spinning endlessly in place, what part of the spiral are we building right now? Are we blocking the flow, or are we helping it grow? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you on the next one.